House now, there we go. Everyone give that little button till it should be not red on top. Everybody on?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'll give a quick roll call. Leslie Mullen, I'm here. Stephanie, I believe as soon as IT is here, we're going to call her and have her join us for the phone. Gretchen Casarati.
Present.
Bonnie.
Present.
Gina. Oh, and that didn't get amended. Okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. Randy B., did he say he was going to be here, or?
Said he was going to be here.
All right, good. Jessica.
Present.
Jennifer Sullivan.
Present.
Jay Wilson. Hopefully he'll join us. Joe Borton.
Here.
Welcome. Our new ex officio for councilman, thank you for being here. All right, we're going to adopt the agenda. We have an amendment to the agenda. We are going to take item 4A off of the agenda for the day. Is there a motion?
I move that we take 4A off the agenda for the moment for this meeting.
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Are there any other needed changes to the agenda? I have none. Hillary? Nothing? All right. Good. Then do we need to reapprove then the agenda as amended? Is there a motion?
Yes. I move that we reapprove the amended agenda from last meeting.
Oh, for this. So the motion is to approve the amended agenda as amended.
And then the meeting as well. Oh, just the
Just this meeting.
Oh,
Yeah. So we're just approving the amended agenda.
Okay. I move that we approve the amended agenda.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome. Okay, good. So now we have the minutes from the October 11th, 2018 regular meeting. If there's nothing to be brought up for clarification, we would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Seconded.
Second, was that from Bonnie?
Yes.
Bonnie does a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on then to new business. We are going
Madam
to move
Chair,
down.
I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. There's item 2A. Skip.
Oh, and that's new, and it's one of our best new additions. Moving back to, do we have to make a motion to amend to move back? Or?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. This is going to be something that we decided to add at the beginning of every meeting just to remind us of, it's like a little mini meditation of why we're here. And we are here to develop, advance, and nurture all facets of the arts to enhance the quality of life for Meridian residents and its visitors. I feel better already. Okay. Thank you, Emily. All right. So moving back to our 4B, a brief discussion. I love your use of the word brief, Hillary. How do we see the Meridian Arts Commission? We've recently had quite a turnover in the commission, and it's been wonderful. We have a lot of newer people on the commission, and less that have been, we have no one that's been here since the commission was originated, and I think I'm, right now, the most long in the tooth member here, so that's kind of shocking. That means we're pretty new. And so as we're approaching this next year where we're looking at our new strategic plan, we thought it would be interesting to have just a brief discussion before we launch into the year when, by the end of it, because our plan now, sundown's at the end of 2019, and so we're really looking at it, and I thought it might be valuable to have a discussion. And we'll just ask each person to chime in, and if Stephanie is able to join us, we'll ask her. And Emily, is it all right if we get past this, if Randy B. or if someone joins us later, if we can ask them at that time, even if we've moved on? Each person gets to speak.
Madam Chair, so it does need to be on your agenda if you're talking about it at a meeting.
Yeah, I'm talking about 4B.
Oh, come back if someone comes later? Oh,
Yes, because
excuse me. Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, awesome. Good. So I will not put anyone on the spot to go first. I'll put myself on the point of that sword. And I think the Arts Commission is an integral force in the community for being one of the things that most visually and audibly, if you're looking at the performing arts, let the record reflect that Randy B. Funk has joined the meeting. Hi, Randy. That's all right. I think we're one of the most visible presences in the community. I think that as, you know, with the city's vision of having each park be a reflection of art as well, I think that how we integrate with Parks and Rec and with other city affiliations is really important, because the aesthetics are present everywhere. They're present here. They're present everywhere we look. The aesthetic is part of our environment. And so I think that we are one of the, of course, everybody thinks their own commission's the most important. I do think that the aesthetic value of a community, people vacation in beautiful places because it's beautiful. People want to live in places because they work there, but why not make it more beautiful for the community as well, so that they can have that little piece of a vacation on the weekend by going downtown Meridian and having it look beautiful and aesthetically pleasing, and having music and art as part of their daily environment, as well as just take advantage of that when they go spend their money in the Bahamas, which is awesome too. We don't have a beach, I get that. But we can have pictures of beaches that look beautiful. And I think that's kind of how I see us as being the tip of the point of the sword for sharpening the dart, so that when we do arts projects, it's not an unorganized, rounded tip that just kind of falls off the dartboard. It has some purchase. And I think we guide that process.
Hello.
And it's very important. So that's my 2 bits. Who wants to go next?
Sorry. We're trying to get her on the phone.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you hear us?
I can barely hear you.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Say again.
Oh.
Hillary.
Yes. Sorry. Sorry, we're trying to figure out the volume because you can't hear us, but we can hear you really loudly.
Oh, sorry. There you
Kind
go.
of like
I
a
can hear you
sound check,
now.
Stephanie.
We can turn her down. Is that better?
That's better. I can hear you now.
I don't know. We can't hear her.
I just turn this up and you can hear her. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome. Sorry that took so long.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. So, Stephanie, we are on 4B, the brief discussion. We are each going to take a couple of minutes. I just took mine to say how we see the Meridian Arts Commission. So I'm going to ask, is there a volunteer to go next?
I'll go next.
Lonnie, thank you.
So I guess I see the Arts Commission not only as visual arts, but to encompass all the arts, both performing arts and visual arts, performing arts, and music. I think that you have to consider all of those, and I think it's important to focus on each one of those in some form as part of the community, because I think when people look at the community, they're looking at all those. I mean, if you're looking at what community involvement, and also to incorporate some, art education into that. And of course, the public art, the visual art is so important, but that we can't forget those other elements.
I agree, and thank you. Those are beautiful words coming from a professional visual artist, because I, as a professional performing artist, I always feel a little conflict of interest with leading the performing arts, but thank you. Thank you. Yes, because it's just like we have all sorts of different types of learners. We have some people in the community who will be born to art and to visual, some that will be performing, some that will be more drawn to the written word, which is, Gretchen, you can probably tell I'm leading up into you taking the next minute. We have all sorts of different aesthetic preferences to guide. Gretchen.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'd be happy to share my thoughts. I guess I see the Arts Commission as a new agency in a fast-growing community with new tools such as maps. I guess I see our role right now as building structure for sustaining a future for the arts in the community. And we have a lot of figuring out to do. There's some growing pains with all of that. And I would add that I see my role as participating. This is very much a working commission, and so if you're going to be on it, you help, you participate, you show up, you do the work. And everyone has something to contribute, as we're finding with our committees, our subcommittees. So I think something that I guess stands out to me in terms of defining the scope of the work we do is around what has the greatest benefit and can maximize the reach. And so projects like public art are typically out of reach for other groups. There are not a lot of other groups in the community doing that type of work. So to me, that makes sense as a commission in a public space to fill those gaps and do things that are out of reach. So we're not competing with private sector. We're really uplifting and supporting our nonprofits, but also filling gaps within the community. So that is, I guess, where I see the commission at this point. I think our future will look differently, but that's where I see us today.
Very good. Good points. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Want to go next?
I echo both of your sentiments. I too also want to see all the forms of art supported and represented. And then I see our role as a balance between quantitative and qualitative endeavors, supporting the quality of life of Meridian. So we can offer potentially financial assistance to these unique endeavors, and then also our public stamp of approval of quality artistic endeavors as a vote to continue and pursue, and any way that we can bolster those efforts.
Thank you. Thank you. Jessica, next up?
Sure. Thank you. Well, I see the arts as a way for a community to establish and express its identity, and a way to really express the soul of the community. And we've started doing that through the Parks Identity program with maps, but I think it really goes to more than just visual art. It's also the performing arts and music, and a way for the entire community to really show what they're about, and show their values, and express something that's sort of intangible, that really gives the community a sense of what it is, so that when you go into that community, you get, you learn more about it through the arts. And I like what Gretchen said about the commission providing a structure for that, in the absence of any other sort of focus or a structured environment for Meridian to support the arts. I think that's where we can come in, and whether that's a little bit through financial resources, but also just in other ways that we can support the arts and help bring everyone in the arts community together to be stronger together.
Thank you. Thank you. Randy B.
Yeah. I would just say, I just want to thank each and every one of you, because you guys all are super awesome, and we all bring our each own individuality to our choices, and just our plans we come up with and everything, and just seeing that we're making a future better for our Meridian citizens to come, and we're growing every day, and just having a commission just for arts solely is just awesome. And I've lived in a lot of different places, and Meridian's the best place I've ever lived overall, and I think that's a big thanks to you guys before I even came here, and just Mayor Tammy, everybody in the city hall is just awesome, and I think we're all just doing a great job. I wouldn't change anything. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question? How do you think the young people perceive Meridian? Do you think that they feel like they have gathering places? Do they have connection and traction in the community that has to do with the artistic development that we've done?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's pretty easy to like find places to perform, especially if you're a musician or if you're an artist. If you look hard enough, it's pretty easy to get spots in Meridian, a lot easier than other cities, I'd say. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here for artists of all different, platforms. So yeah, I would say so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Good. I'm glad you like it here.
Thank you.
We like you on the commission.
Thanks.
All right, Stephanie, do you feel comfortable enough chiming in over the phone?
I can try that.
We can hear you loud and clear, so don't worry.
Okay. It's kind of hard being last because everybody chimed in with such great input. I totally agree, and I agree with Gretchen that it does benefit us to really work towards the public art, since there isn't, like she said, a lot of other entities that are able to do that. And us having the ability to have the MAPS program really helps us push forward on that, and then also being able to get grants, I think, is a wonderful thing too. And as our city is growing the way that it is, we want the people that are coming here to feel, like she said, that quality of life, and be able to see that we do care about our city, and we do care about the way things look and our culture, and pleasing visually and in every other way we can with the people, so that they have other things besides just to work and live here. But it is a beautiful place, and I enjoy being on the commission, and I appreciate everybody's work and everything that they do to keep moving forward on our strategies for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Borton, I know you're brand new. Do you have anything to add? As your first day here as ex officio.
So, certainly. And I remember when the commission was first formed back in the day. Maybe a totally different approach, but what I see you do and your predecessors do is sort of a bad analogy, is kind of a hall of justice. You are sort of superheroes in your own right. What we've done is collected a group of individuals with unique and excellent talents and perspectives to try to facilitate the city's goal to promote the arts and empower you with the ability to do so, with financial resources at least, in hopes that you can use your unique perspectives and passions and talents to further the arts in our city, and then get out of your way and let you do that and support you in those efforts. So that's how I see the Arts Commission. I think that's how it was formed, with that vision, and the collection of individuals that are on there now have those skills that we need to and can support and give you the resources to be successful, because I know you certainly will. And the community benefits from it. And the community's already provided so much feedback, recognizing that they didn't know what they didn't know. And that what an arts commission and a strong arts presence in a city can do, we're now reaping the rewards of that. And it's time to leverage that and grow it more. So that happens with individuals like you who know how to do it. We just need to give you the resources to be successful.
Is there anything that we could do that would help you?
Sure.
That would make the road more efficient between us?
Efficient? Well.
Yeah. Is there anything we could do better?
I'm too new to know maybe if there's inefficiencies, what that is. I love this commission and what it can do. And if just speaking for myself, what I like to see is people stretch and challenge. And if there's something this commission wishes it could do and can't do, whether it's resources or financial, stretch and challenge and ask. And this is just from my perspective. I like for you to want to be successful and have this explode bigger than it is now, to ask and say, what is it we're not able to do now, and what's preventing us from doing it? Is it time? Is it talents? Is it treasure? And who do we ask to help facilitate us to grow? If that's truly our goal, is to grow the arts in our community.
Okay.
So let's do it.
Time, talents, and treasure. I like that. Time, talents, and treasure. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot here. Does anyone have any final comments or questions or anything else that now that we've heard that they feel like they'd like to add? Hillary? I know that this might put you on the spot a little bit. How can we help you do what you do better? Be brutal.
Having you guys being really actively engaged and involved on your committees is super helpful to me. I think we've seen a lot more progress in the last year with those committees than we did the previous year, trying to do the liaison type of format. So I just ask for your patience with me as we have a lot of meetings and work through a lot of really important things at that committee level, because there's a lot of stuff that you guys are trying to touch and implement and do, and I think sometimes I have a bandwidth issue with that, but the more you guys get engaged, the more we can get done, and the closer we can get to your guys' goals, and the more we can help our community see the benefit of the arts in all of its forms. So thank you all for being engaged, responding to my emails.
Thank you. And I apologize, but I've been trying to get a condo on the market this week, so I've been at my condo till 3 a.m. almost every, so I really dropped the ball for a couple of days. I am so sorry. Yes, okay, anyone else? Thank you. Thank you all for your input, and we'll move on then to item 4C, the Meridian Arts Commission video. A few years back, when Claudia Weatherman Tester was still on the board, and we had more videography type facilities, there was a discussion about making a short 2 to 3 minute video that would be about the arts. I call it the what color is your toothbrush video, but just showing how a person walking through their day encounters arts, even if they don't think that they have any arts in their life at all, how it's the one thing that besides oxygen that you can't avoid all day, every day. Toothbrush is a color, you chose it because you like it. Some artists chose that color. You get into the interior of your car, you turn on your radio, art is everywhere around you. And so how can we raise awareness for people to realize how much, even if they don't think they're a consumer of the arts, to realize that they are a massive consumer of the arts every day. Even if they've never been inside a live theater, they've been consuming arts since the day they were born, basically. Their mother, the first time she showed her face with makeup on, they were consuming art, and probably as a newborn. I don't know how many of you put your makeup on before those pictures with your newborns, but I did. So it's just everywhere. And so a short video, I'd like to consider us finding a budget to do a short video that would just show that. We've got good actors in the area that we can use, video editors, the person that we're thinking about having come on to do our apprenticeship program for the videos for next year for Art Week might be a very, very good resource. We were talking about that in the strategic planning meeting, that might be a good resource of someone that's relevant to our process right now that could help us out. It's a win-win there. And she knows what she's doing, and so we could ask her if she would be interested. So I would just like to kind of hear how do you feel about that? 2 to 3 minute video that we could show at things when we have city council, or we could show it at Art Week and have it running in Deja Brew, or we would just have constant access to a tool that makes art relevant to a typical community member. We all are, except we just happen to do the arts more. But everyone is a consumer. But I just thought, I wanted to hear what you guys thought of that plan. And you can say, that sounds like the worst idea I've ever heard, Leslie. I'm just looking to see what you guys think. If that would be helpful, if it would be too much for us to take on.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Jennifer.
I'm wondering, would this be specific to Meridian? Like, I know that there are probably videos out there of different cities doing different things. Would this be specific to Meridian, that it would be more heartfelt or embraced in that manner?
I think it would be. I think it'd be fun to use locations that were in Meridian, but I think that it would be more of a general message. So I guess a combination of both. We could, shoot at Generations Plaza, shoot in places that are, shoot at the Village, shoot at places that show the art. Do a shoot in front of our big art. The art display that's over there as you. I don't know what the streets are, but on Meridian Road, the Craig Grencher piece. And have it be, so have the location be Meridian, but the message would be more, hi, Jay. The message would be more general. That's kind of what I was thinking, but yeah.
Do we have a clearly defined objective, like we want this video to do X? The thought process behind that. I know I'm firing.
No. It would literally be just the storyboard would be taking a person through a day, a typical day. Not I'm going to the theater day, not I'm going to an art gallery day, not any of those. Just how art affects a person's life as they go through a typical business day. To make it more relevant to a person who may think that they don't consume art, but that they actually are consuming all day. It's that art enhances their quality of life, even if they don't seek it out specifically. It's still there. So to raise that kind of awareness is, I don't know if that's specific enough. Yes, Gretchen.
Chair, what I'm hearing is that we would have a video that would be desired to be able to use in presentations in the community, on social media, so kind of a general advocacy use is what I'm hearing from it, versus for a specific project or initiative or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Does that answer your question more clearly?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is this just like a concept for now? Or is there like, okay, I was curious if you had like an estimation of like, okay. But I think it sounds great.
Okay.
I'd like to see that. That'd
Okay.
be really cool, I think. It could give people a good idea when you said like when we do our events and things like that. I think that'd be really good. Give them an idea of just like other events that are going on, or like just other things. It would broaden the spectrum for people to see that we don't only do just this event or one thing, or it would show a different array of what we do. I think that'd be a really good idea to have the video.
Okay, that's a little bit different. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Hi, Jay. We're talking about, we are on 4C right now. We're just talking, this is just a concept that we're talking about at really conceptual level, just to see if people are interested or if you think it would be valuable, a valuable tool to use. Did you have something?
I have a question. Since this is referenced as an action item and a potential motion for a not to exceed amount, I don't really feel like I have a handle on where this fits in our budget that we just went through a process for, what expendable funds we have when we've already articulated some priorities versus planning the rest of this year and working this into next year's budget. I don't have a clarity around the sense of urgency for doing this or where it fits timeline-wise as pertains to funding for it, since we're talking about spending money on it versus getting a student to do it or something.
Right. So, yeah. I was just thinking about it since the Strategic Planning Committee is talking a lot about our presentation to council, but it's unrealistic to think we could have it ready by then, I think, depending on when we present. and considering that our budget is kind of already set for us. So for me, it's just more of a thinking about developing it if people think, because this would be kind of a big project. It would be something to take on. And we need to kind of have everybody think it was a good idea in order for it to be worth pursuing. And so for me, I think we consider it as a concept piece now, and then continue to develop it and assign it a budget when we have our new fiscal year.
Madam Chair, I just want to say that I speak in support of this video. I think it's a wonderful idea. I just want to make sure that it's more fully formed before we take action.
And keep in mind that, can I say this about the House bill? That we have this House bill that in order to take action, we have to have it listed on the agenda. And so we're listing everything that might possibly come, as opposed to, it used to be that we put action items only if we knew we were specifically ready. Now, we put it in because we might need to take a motion on it, and we're required by the state to put it on as an action agenda item. So that's a little bit, you know, putting the cart ahead of the horse maybe with this one, because we're not, I'm not getting that, I don't think it needs to be an action item to buy into it as a concept. I think we just need to decide whether or not we want to continue to have it on as a discussion, as old business, and continue to develop it. Does that sound?
Madam Chair, I think
Yes.
like so many of our other projects, if there's interest in the idea and people want to run with it and then bring something more fully formed, then we have something more meaningful to really discuss or provide input on. So.
All right. Very good. Are there any more comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think it's a great idea, and I think we should if that comes to be, I think it should be focusing on what we have to offer as far as the arts within the city.
Okay.
And I think it would be it could be a tool that recruiters could use in bringing executive level people into the community and business building, just to show what's offered there is in the city for the arts.
Okay, so be more specific to the city of Meridian then, as opposed to a general advocacy video. And that, I think, is what Randy B. was.
Yeah.
That's kind of how you saw the concept as well, right?
Yeah. Well,
You mentioned that.
yeah, I meant like just like a video that would explain kind of what we do as the Meridian Arts Commission, and you know, go not quite in depth through everything. It'd be it would be a shortish video. That's what you kind of were saying. But I think it would kind of just have it simple and just to describe what we do and what we are, and have it on maybe our website and have it playing at events and things like that, and just kind of just have it as like a theme or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. We already had for the concerts on Broadway, we already have some aerial photography of that. I imagine some of this stuff we could look at and we'd have it in our photo archives if we go more specifically. So that would make it simpler than, it's a different concept. But yeah, good.
Cool.
That's exactly what I was hoping for, because what I have in mind is not always, I just have this idea, but it's not, yeah, good. I like it. So I think that the concept has changed from having it be more general advocacy to have it being just a more generic, this is what we have in our city to offer, like more, and to outreach for business advocacy and to let people know what we have available.
Madam Chair.
Do you think that, yes?
To
Jessica.
maybe to kind of build on both of those ideas together, I think it is still possible to present it as, a day in the life of a person in Meridian, but making sure, for example, if someone is driving down the road, you get a shot of one of the traffic boxes, kind of like the stop sign, they look at the traffic box, or they're having lunch or going for a walk downtown, and there happens to be like concert on Broadway happening, something like that. So
Or music on Generations Plaza.
right, Right. Or, you know, passing by any of the sculptures that we have, or something happening at Kleiner Park. So I think that there is a way to kind of merge both of those, where you get a feel for what it's like to be a resident of Meridian and experience the arts throughout your day here, and so that we can kind of build on your original idea, but also make it more specific to what we have here in the city.
So a combination of the two. That sounds good. Yeah. Okay, good. I think unless anyone else has anything to offer on that, Councilman Borton, do you think that that would be about? How do you see having a tool like that as valuable to the city? Does that seem like something that would be interesting, or?
At first blush, it certainly does. I could, in addition to everything that's been discussed, I would envision that the economic development team might be able to utilize it as whether, you know, site selectors are looking for communities that their employees might have interest in, and it's another amenity that we could share and show that the community's supportive of the arts, and it might help some site selection, among other benefits.
Okay. All right.
The scope of, as you describe it, the scope of what it is, a video that describes how arts impact a community and how it's available in your everyday life in a lot of different facets, or a more focused, here's what is available to an individual in Meridian, what we provide. I think those sound like they're totally different, different types of projects.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd have to come up with that. But thank you. Thank you. And which would you prefer? Something that showed Meridian more, maybe, would be more valuable specifically?
It would
Do you lean that direction?
It would be more unique. I would imagine how arts impacts an individual's daily life might already be out there.
Yeah, maybe we could find that from someone else, yeah.
Because it's not, if it's not unique to Meridian, the descriptions that I've heard are common in a lot of communities.
Okay.
Which it's valuable for an individual to know that. The question, I guess, is what's the video as a purpose that drives the accomplishment of what particular goal? Right? What purpose is it serving? What do you hope it does? Does it raise money? Does it open doors and awareness? Does it allow economic development to improve site selection? Purpose of the video probably defines the scope, but certainly would benefit the city.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Jay.
My family moved from Boise to Meridian a year and a half ago, and I had been spending the last year in Boise learning about the art programs that existed there, getting involved with some of the groups, and then we moved to Meridian. And when I came here, that was one of the big questions I had is, what does Meridian have arts-wise that I could get involved in? And just by poking around, I found this and a number of other things, but there was no real clear, defined, I guess, explanation of what opportunities existed in Meridian, what kinds of groups congregated, and the activities. There wasn't, I never really found a central location for that information. I kind of had to piece it all together over time. And I think that's where we might benefit from this, is kind of pointing out, because we're getting so many people coming here and they have a lot of questions. A lot of them don't get a lot of time to research because they're coming from farther away than I did. And and I think it would be good to have somewhere that they could, like, right on our website, bam, there it is. Here's what Meridian has to offer for people that are interested in the arts, and more direct that attention, given our current climate of growth.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks everybody for chiming in on that. I think it's, you know, just something to be considered, and yeah. I would like to say that I have the time the next month to put together something specific, but my time has really, really changed in the past couple of years, and I'm still kind of getting a grip on it. So let me think about it. The Strategic Planning Committee can do some work on it before, but we discussed it a little bit, and we wanted to bring it to you guys first before we took any more time going forward, because this is something that, you know, would take some time, and we'd want to make sure that everybody was interested and thought it was something that they wanted to do before we kept moving forward with it in strategic planning. So we'll keep discussing it then for the time being, and thank you. Now, I would like to go back quickly to B. Jay, would you mind, we each just took a moment to say how we see the Arts Commission, and you had another obligation and had to be a little bit late. Would you mind chiming in there? Just in general, how you see the Arts Commission.
That's a good question. I already kind of discussed some of it.
You did. You kind of touched on some things.
This was really, the Arts Commission was one of the first things that I came across when I started looking into the arts in Meridian. And I think what Meridian has done, given where the population was and how it's been growing and everything like that, I think it's actually very impressive. Boise, I think, has a little bit more history behind the arts and has had more time to develop that piece. And I think because of the population density with downtown Boise, there's a little bit more interaction on that part. But I think having this commission has really put Meridian right behind Boise as far as the arts are concerned. The amount of effort that I see the commission putting forth I'm very impressed by. And I really loved when I interviewed with Mayor Tammy, her commitment to the arts, and seeing this panel, I can see how that has an impact. And I think we try to be as visible as possible with how many of us showed up to various events, and the chalk art was one of the main ones that I was at, and I was very impressed with the interactions there, and just listening to. I'm pretty introverted for the most part, so I kind of sit back and just take things in, and the number of conversations that I witnessed people having concerning that event was inspiring, I think, to say the least. And so I think our involvement in this community with the people that we have is second to none, really. And I think some of that, though, goes largely unnoticed by the community at large. So I think that brings us back to this video. I think creating a little bit more visibility on what we do and the efforts that we put in and the work that's accomplished, I think, is excellent. I think it's something that's needed, especially considering the number of new people that are coming here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for being willing to jump in there. All right, so if there's no more discussion there, we will move on to the Idaho Commission on the Arts grants. And Jennifer and Hillary, do you have some input there? I know that you'd been talking a little bit about the Commission on the Arts grants, and we talked in strategic planning about it.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would just like to query the commission to see if grants are something we would like to pursue, and just open up the conversation if that's possible. Because I've heard little pieces of information saying, oh, grants are good, grants are not good, grants are good, grants are... So if we can clarify the pros and cons of writing grants before we actually move forward on them, that would be, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Very, very good. And this is something that we've discussed many times before about whether we should go look for grants or whether we should, we had a big discussion about the difference between fundraising, which we definitely felt that was not, fundraising was not something that we wanted to do, but going after grants was seen as a different approach. I think there are some grants that, as you were talking about, some of the ICA grants have federal dollars involved in them, and some are state. A lot of the state dollars that they give come from the federal dollars. And so we just need to determine, spend some time determining which grants may be appropriate for us, and have specific things to go to them for the grants for, like the video or concert project, something that's specific, or another art installation that we need more money for. But I think that we've also struggled with having people that had time to look, and just grant identification takes a lot of work and time and knowledge about what projects we have going that may be relevant to this granting process. And so I think that's something that we've struggled with, is just finding the time to be able to identify grants that are project specific, that are a good match. I'm not a grant writer, and so I feel like I'm at a bit of a deficit there, but maybe from a more general approach, if each of us could, as a first step, familiarize ourselves, myself, because I know you're very familiar with the grant process. I need to become more familiar with it. I need to go online. I know people on the Arts Commission, the Idaho Arts Commission, but I need to go online and just understand a little bit more about what they have available. That would be a good first step for me. It's a very beginner step. You're further down the line, but I don't know. I think at this point, maybe just making ourselves more aware that that's part of what I think we're interested in doing. Is everyone interested in finding project-specific grants? Do they see that as part? Do you see that as part of what the commission's? Do you see that as part of our scope? Bonnie.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
in my experience with grant writing, I was involved with a museum, and we had grants for that were based on salary for certain people for different projects and what they did, but also and for operations as well as projects. So typically, I think with grants, you have to have a focus. You have to know what you want before you start looking at grants.
Exactly.
So if it's I think it's putting the cart a little bit before the horse by going out there and looking to see what grants are there and then trying to figure out what to use them for. Because if you're going to take the time to write them, you have to have something specific that you...
I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. That's exactly what I was saying. That's why I said it has to be for the film, or it has to be for Concerts on Broadway.
Exactly.
We have to find a grant that matches the project.
Right.
I'm sorry, that got reversed, but that's absolutely right. You have to, that's what I meant. We have to have the project kind of ready before we can figure out which grants may match. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say. Exactly that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would also think that eligibility would be an issue, because a lot of grants are for nonprofits or 501c3s, and the Arts Commission is not that. And so looking at what we're eligible for would be something. We've written a lot at the library and ended up creating a scoring rubric that we run any grant through before we apply to make sure it's worth it. Whether it's for capital or operations or anything, looking at the amount of staff time and who's going to have to handle it and who's going to take on those things. And I would imagine for an organization like ours, at the end of the day, it's really Hillary or a staff member who has to kind of wrangle the grant in terms of reporting or access to anything else that goes alongside it. So I think we could contribute in some way if we're interested in exploring them. I think they absolutely make sense. And your video is a perfect example of a special one-time initiative project that we could look for funding for, but I would just be conscious of the fact that a lot of that will ultimately still fall to Hillary, even if we help with the writing of the proposal itself. The actual administration of it would still go through staff.
Yeah. So it's just Jennifer. Did you have?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I was wondering if we had the support if we were to write grants. In your corner, Hillary. I don't know what resources you have exactly. Would that be feasible, or would that be a hardship on the resources that you have?
resources as far as time? Is that what you're?
Yes, in
Yes.
every way.
I think that there are projects that you guys could pursue, like the video project, that would be a worthwhile project, but it would mean that something else gets put on the back burner. I'm at capacity for things that I can take on in addition to what you guys already have in your wheelhouse and things that you're already doing. So yeah, it's not impossible, but something else would have to take the hit for that time. Finance also is hit by it for sure. Gretchen mentioned all staff, not just myself. But it depends on what your grant is. If it's a smaller grant, it could be much more manageable. You know, if it's something that you're looking for $5,000 and you guys are matching, you know, half of that, that's going to be easier than if you're trying to get a $20,000 grant or something that's much larger. And Emily, you're on the grant committee. So I think the grant committee threshold for them reviewing grants is $25,000. Things below that require a little less, but I'm not super familiar.
Madam Chair, we do, as Hillary mentioned, we do have a grant review committee, and that is, it sounds like along the lines of what you're talking about, Gretchen, where the committee looks at the burden that will be for staff, and it's, a rubric is a great idea. We might have to borrow that, but it's more of a, thank you. It's more of a kind of a judgment call based on everyone's workload and what is required. Some are really easy and some are really intense. So it, the threshold is 25,000, but it's definitely worth evaluating to make sure that we do have the ability to manage it. I know that some of these are geared to, so the Arts Commission has gotten quick funds grants before, and they're geared to be really easy. They're not all like that, but some of those are definitely take that into consideration on the front end. So it is something to consider as you look at the balancing what you get and what you have to give.
Okay, good.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I add one more thing, particularly since we've been talking about the Alexa Rose Foundation and also trying to look at how can we nurture and support arts, even if we don't take them on for ourselves. I think there's definitely room for how do we share that to say to local artists or organizations in the community, hey, we came across this, would you like to partner on it? Or have you seen this grant? And certainly passing along opportunities could be a valuable contribution to the community of art.
I agree. So we give triage, we yeah. Yeah, so we know what grants are available. We have a decent understanding of what grants are available so that somebody who comes to us, we might be able to say, well, there's a grant through the ICA that may suit your needs. That I like that idea too, and it gives us another motivation that doesn't have to be specifically project-based from us to kind of cut our teeth and get to know what's out there a little bit in a more general way. That's a good motivation. Because project-based is good, and the quick grants are probably our best bet to be able to manage it with the time that we have available. So as far as our projects, we might kind of consider those more, but a general overarching view of the resources that are available to community members that come to us for support will be wonderful. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just have one question. Do you think, I don't know if this is an option, but do you think that it would be worthwhile to invite someone from the Idaho Commission on the Arts to like a strategic plan committee meeting or something where we could sit down with them and kind of throw ideas at them or throw questions at them, and they can give us some more guidance on whether this is something we want to pursue, and if so, how we would go about it, what's our best avenue?
I think that's a great idea. We met two people that would be great for that at the NowPac. You have their information? I think, yeah. So that's a great idea. Thank you. Let's do that. I'll email. Anyone else want to chime in there? Good. Yes.
I'm happy to help on those kinds of things, either researching, like we have Grant Station at the library and databases that we can look for additional grants outside of things like this, as well as with the writing, if that's helpful if we get there.
Thank you. Yes, it is. Wonderful. Okay, so I think we kind of have a little bit more, because these, we're kind of having in this meeting a lot of things that have kind of been, you know, we've kind of gotten sidetracked by looking at our specific strategic plan, by looking at all these different things, and we've kind of lost. I just felt like a meeting where we discussed whether or not we think grants are interesting to us, whether just to kind of get a feeling on where everybody is, both time-wise and interest-wise on these things. So the next thing, this has covered so much of what we've already done in our strategic plan committee report. Almost that I think E1, I don't have a whole lot more to add on the updates that we've included so much in the agenda itself. Jessica or Jennifer, do you have anything more to add on the update? Hillary? Really? We've been going over specific sections of the strategic plan and also thinking about our, you know, the presentation that we're going to be doing and trying to get a kind of put the pieces together of what we want in that presentation. It's becoming more clear. We had a short discussion on grants and how we wanted to go forward with that, and we decided that was a discussion better to be had with the full commission. So yeah, that's basically what we've been doing. We're pretty focused on this presentation and the strategic plan. Jessica, did you have anything that?
Well, I think one thing that we started discussing, which kind of spurred wanting to, you know, put item 4B on the agenda, taking a step back to talk about what role the commission does or should play in the community and how we want to focus our efforts on that, because the strategic plan kind of includes everything right now, and I think we're at a point, Gretchen kind of got to this before, where we're growing and there are a lot of new opportunities, and it's important for us to figure out how we want to focus our time and effort and incorporate that into the new strategic plan. So I think that's a conversation that should be ongoing among all of us in terms of how we move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what we've been doing. But some of the stuff we've just felt we needed to have a baseline from everyone before we went forward with anything, because it didn't seem to make, we just wanted to get everybody's input. So, Stephanie, are you still with us? Stephanie?
I am, sorry.
Oh, okay, good. I just want to check in.
Everybody but you.
Okay, good. Are you able to hear us pretty well?
I hear everybody, but you go in and out constantly. I can't hardly hear most of what you're saying.
Oh, well, I'm just doing triage anyway, so. My words are the least important. So moving on to 2 then, the artist list discussions from the current strategic plan. We were thinking about having a list of artists that are available and going after, so that we have, Jay kind of touched on this a little bit when you talked about when you moved to Boise, you're kind of like, I mean, to Meridian from Boise, you're kind of like, well, what's here? What's my resource to find things like that? And so we're talking about doing some artist lists. Just Jennifer, I saw your eyes light up there.
Madam Chair, I got a little bit of feedback and some history that might be helpful to our discussion. There is a directory that already exists at idahoartists.com. It's a bit outdated. It exists, but most people don't seem to really know about it.
I didn't.
So, and then the other thing is it depends on the artist to update the site, and so there's a lot of outdated information for that reason.
Okay.
So the Idaho Commission on the Arts has done this in the past, and we can learn from what they've done. one of our questions in the strategic planning committee was, should we pursue this or should we go to a larger state source? Which is why we questioned Idaho Commission on the Arts, and they gave us a lot of really in-depth information. One of the things that they would like from us is to know if we do want to pursue this, they would need to throw more resources and planning into it, and then ongoing resources as well. So to question if this is a valuable resource and what it should specifically accomplish, it would be valuable for them to know if they should look into this further if we have an interest in any way.
In other words, so they would help us, and I can see, you know, when you're dependent on people to keep the information flowing forward to the central source, it does take a lot of administration, and it takes somebody to go out and say, is your site up to date, you know, and so maybe that would be a better way to approach it, is to tell the Idaho Arts Commission that we would be interested in that resource, but that we understand that it would mean that they had to dedicate more resources. And so once again, it's a matter of whether they're at critical mass and priorities. That seems to be coming up a lot. And who would administer the list? I mean, even for us, if we were to compile a list, who has the time to compile it and then to make sure it's updated? Because I can tell, I look at this and I think there's been a ton of work from the artists and the person who put this website together to have this list available, but it's only as valuable as it is maintenance and updated. And so it would just be a matter of whether or not we felt that was a priority for us, or whether we should state to the Idaho Arts Commission that we would be interested, if they are interested in doing it, that we would be interested in having it as a resource and helping them as we can, but maybe not taking it on as an individual project for us. Yeah. What do you guys think on that?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
It gives me a lot of red flags. I work in the tech field a lot, and the auditing alone on something like this on a statewide level would be a ridiculous amount of work. And I think there are things that could be done if put in the right hands to administer and manage it. There's a significant amount of automation, I think, that could be implemented that would reduce that need, but it would have to be in the hands of somebody that could manage that functionality, and that's expensive. So either you have somebody that puts in a lot of man hours, or you pay a lot of money to have fewer man hours but get the same amount of work done in a more, I guess, reasonable amount of time. But it really comes down to, I think you could probably audit it once a year, and I think you would probably be okay with that scenario to kind of weed out who's still around and who's not, but that'd be a huge amount of effort during that period of time for that audit to happen. And I don't think anyone on the commission would be able to accomplish that for sure, and I'm not sure that the Idaho Arts Commission would even be able to.
And if they were to decide to do it, Meridian would be included. And so we could use that, instead of us generating the tool and making our own list, we could use that tool if it becomes available. And so I think that makes more sense. Anyway, that came up. So we thought we'd throw it out there and see what came back. So I think that if the tool becomes available, we utilize it to our best ability and get it out to the community. But other than that, I think we just kind of let that one go. Yes? Everyone?
So the artist
Yes.
lists are mentioned in most of your strategic plan segments. That's why it's come up for the strategic plan committee. So I guess the question would be, is that something then that the commission as a whole thinks isn't valuable to include in the next strategic plan, the building and maintenance of these lists, if you would rather see another agency take it on. You could eliminate all but one of those and say help support the Idaho Commission on the Arts or an external agency to develop a tool that could be used for X, Y, and Z. I think we have an internal list for people that have applied for our things, but it's nothing that's public. So we can continue to add on to the contacts that we have. We haven't solicited to do anything that would be.
Just as they come in, as opposed to us reaching out. As they come in, we keep track of. But I think it's wise to, because that is something that really is on our strategic plan that we haven't been doing, and we just really don't have the capacity to do it. But of course, if a tool becomes available, we'll use it as a tool, but, okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
To Jay's
Gretchen.
point as well, I mean, Google exists, and there's a lot of infrastructure already for being discovered as an artist. So if there's other ways we could think about building capacity of artists through education around how do we facilitate teaching them how to build their own websites and build their own web presence and things like that. I mean, that could be something to explore in terms of not taking on the responsibility of curating those lists, because they're always going to be changing, but rather helping the artists learn how to get themselves
That's great.
more visible.
Madam Chair, we might even benefit greater from just highlighting maybe certain groups like the Idaho Gourd Society or the Watercolor Society, and highlighting those on like our Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and just highlighting them so people that are following the city or the Arts Commission can know that there's these groups that exist and then get in contact with them themselves. And I think there's lots of resources social media wise that, I mean, just from my experience, I've joined several pages and groups and things like that for photography. That's a simple search, and I think there's more interaction in those smaller groups and contact and resources available than what I think we could provide with our resources alone. So.
Okay, good. So once again, getting back to a more general advocacy and making connections for people as opposed to making and maintaining lists, which is kind of how our strategic plan reads right now. So good, thank you. That's one of the things that kind of jumped out that we thought needed to throw out to the group too. All right, that's very helpful. Are there any more comments on that before we move on to 4F? Which is the Public Art Committee report. And who wants to lead there?
I can take that on because
Okay.
we skipped October.
Okay.
Your guys' the Public Art Committee's meeting next Thursday. I have it on there, the actual time and day. But I did want to update you guys really briefly on the Park Identity Public Art projects because those site plans took place last week. All 3 artists on the Park Identity Public Art roster have expressed written interest in applying for both parks. So we should have 6 proposals total for the presentations in January.
Good.
I've been able to get a hold of the Champion Park HOA and get connected with one of their board members so they can also be on the panel for their park. And then I'm kind of going back and forth with someone from Tuscany's HOA, so hopefully we'll be able to get someone from their board as well to help serve on the panel. And I need to still create my minutes, my notes from the site plan visits, but when I have those completed, I can forward to you all if you want, or at least share with the Public Art Committee so they're aware of how those site plans went. Both of the parks are very kind of generic parks, which is why the Parks Commission wanted us to work on those 2. And both of them have 2 kind of access areas. So Champion Park is in between 2 different roads, and then Renaissance Park is a short part of it is along one road, and then there's another road that bends along another way. So as far as the Parks Commission's kind of request for the artwork to be something that's visible to not only park users, but also passersby, people driving by, people walking on pathways, there's, I think, plenty of opportunities for the artists to explore to help kind of meet that interest. But other than that, it's pretty pretty standard stuff.
Okay, thank you. Any more input from Public Art Committee?
I created a very long agenda for them, so I can share that with you if you'd like to see it.
Oh, awesome.
Hillary, could you remind me
Very
when that
good.
panel is, please, in January?
The panel is on January 9th at 3 p.m. It's a Wednesday.
Thank you.
If I haven't already, I will send you the calendar invite to be there.
See it, so yes, please.
Yeah.
Now, I'll send that to all the public art panelists, public art committee members.
All right, there's no more discussion or questions on that. We will move on then to the Events and Outreach Committee report. Who wants to take the charge on that?
So, Madam Chair, we met last week, Stephanie, Hillary, and I. Randy was not able to attend. And we discussed the, just a recapture of the Art Week. And that really is our focus, is making Art Week a really good, viable art event for the city. There were some things that need to be addressed, and one of the things was the event where we have the chalk art competition. It conflicted with, I think, a football game, and so to relocate those days and to research what's going on in the school systems, and then to focus on some core activities that we would do every year, so that people get used to that idea, and then have other, you can always add to those that are, an annual, just a one-time thing.
Yeah, very cool.
And we talked about, ways to draw in the businesses and really get a buy-in from the business community as well as participation from artists, and to incorporate, both performing and visual arts in a way to, again, just to draw people into the event.
Okay.
So we'll meet after the meetings, after the general commission meetings monthly for this time.
Okay, so you're
for the
going
time
to,
being.
ooh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, that sounds great. I think those predictable things that you start with one or two, you build up, and there are things that attract different communities with different things that they like and different, I think that's great. And just because it gives it more shape. That Art Week to me has always seemed, I love that chalk art competition, but it seems like it doesn't have quite enough shape to draw different, I love it.
And then to have
I don't
a
have any
consistent,
ideas,
a consistent time of the year, to keep it the same. If it's going to be the week after Labor Day, which I think was what we suggested, to keep that week.
Okay.
Makes sense so that people can, then you can plan on it.
Yeah. They're like, oh, that's right. It's our week. Good, thank you. Anybody else want to chime in there? Thank you. All right, we're moving on to old business then. We have the budget and the project code consideration, and this has been kind of an ongoing thing. Hillary, what'd you find out?
I wanted to point out very briefly that I finally changed that attachment name. I deleted it. So, being a real professional now. So I met with Karen Waddell in the finance department, who does your guys' reports every month. And these were kind of the suggestions that she came up with. And I'm going to read them out loud because I don't know if Stephanie can see them where she is. So art development, concerts on Broadway, performing art, Initial Point Gallery, youth art, Art Week, other expenses, public art, and traffic box art. And that other expenses one has always kind of been like, if it's not, if it's not for Art Week, but it's kind of a marketing thing, it's not specific to something else, that comes out from other expenses. Mailings always come out from other expenses. That's primarily what it's been used for. Youth art, we broke out with the intention of it being, with 4 and 5, with Initial Point Gallery and youth art being composites from what you guys now just call visual art. It used to be broken up into these two before, with the youth art being the art awards for West Ada students. but that could also contain the art awards for the Meridian Symphony Orchestra Rising Star, which I think makes just as much sense as having the MSO item in performing art. If you're talking about youth art awards or youth art recognition, you could put it there. It just kind of, to Karen and I, it made sense to call Initial Point Gallery out because there are specific expenses related to Initial Point Gallery.
So the youth art code then it would include both the symphony and the art competition. Is that what you're saying? Those will both be on the same code.
That was the option. Yeah, it could either include MSO and the West Ada School District, or you could leave MSO under performing art. It would just be a matter of us adjusting the line item.
Using, yeah.
Or we don't have to call
I
it.
kind of like having a code for like young artists, which would include, maybe we could, instead of calling it youth art, what do you guys think on that? Young artists, so that would include both performing artists and visual artists. I like having them and under the same code and more specific. That would make more sense to me.
Madam Chair, I think in
Yes.
the instance of Meridian Symphony, we're still contributing to the symphony. We just choose that performance to kind of donate toward, right?
That's true.
And it's a
kind of
pretty small
included.
percentage of the overall budget. It's not a particularly big gift. So I think it shows us to be more well-rounded if we keep them separated as more broadly supporting performing art from the symphony perspective. If you break down our funds and we find that such a high percentage is all only focused at youth, I think we've talked at this at some point in the past about making sure we set the good example. If kids don't see professional artists in the community, do they see that as a viable path for them? And that's certainly a role the commission can play, coming back to our original conversations around supporting professional adults in the community.
Okay. So you're saying that the keeping it, the MSO things, including the grants that we give, should continue to be under the performing art. That makes, yeah.
It does to me. I mean,
Yeah, that makes sense because
I'm not gonna draw a line in the sand over it, but
yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah, with you explaining that does make more sense because that's kind of more balanced. It does leave youth art then would be the one competition, and that would make more sense having it that way. Yeah, thank you. That makes a lot more sense to me now if we're just thinking of it as the Meridian Symphony Orchestra as opposed to a specific thing given to young artists, and it is included. Yeah.
Madam Chair, if you'd like, we can change the name of that youth art. We could make it just framed art show or something to that effect that might be more specific, or we could combine, like we had before, 4 and 5 under visual arts, because at the end of the day, we give a maximum of 5 art awards, and they're easy enough to pull out when you're looking at a project code.
I'm actually, now that Gretchen spoke to that agenda, I'm actually fine with the way it is, exactly as she described it. That makes sense to me now. And like we said, we can make our decision on this. This was just kind of a probative journey that you took for us. I appreciate it. And how is everyone feeling about putting it, now that we see the specific categories, having those coded and just changing our budget to reflect it? Is everyone still, now that we have these categories outlined, is everyone still comfortable and on board with moving forward with having the codes generated for these categories? I am. I'm fine with it.
Madam Chair, I am, although now that you've said that, I think it might be worthwhile to consider being more specific about youth art, because we also have TVCT, and where does that fit in, and if that's going under performing art, but it's youth focused. I'm not sure what if our intent is to call out how we support youth, then that's one thing, but it makes it blurrier in terms of these codes of saying what the type is. So if it's funding the projects or the initiatives, then I would say, yes, let's make sure youth art is called what it is then.
So under this discussion, we had put TVCT, under performing art, because
Yeah.
that's currently where
Right.
they are.
And that makes sense
Yeah.
Yeah,
to me.
yeah, to me too.
That's what it is.
Okay. So does youth art not make sense to have because it's this weird?
It does
anomaly?
now. It does to me now. It didn't at first because I thought it made more sense to put all the youth thing, you know, the budget that we give to young artists in the same category. But since we don't really, since the MSO, we give them one grant. We don't give them separate grants. We give them one grant, especially because this year we voted to move up in the sponsorship level, which we will consider again for next year. And that includes, it used to be that all of the dollars that we gave to MSO went specifically to the Young Artists Program. Right. But now we gave them more money. Remember, David Stolhan came and gave us a presentation. We chose to bump up our sponsorship level, so it now includes both a sponsorship and doesn't it? That amount that we finished out the year with a higher
Right.
sponsorship.
We did finish out the year with a higher sponsorship amount, but it was still in the intent to support the Rising Stars program. So what
Okay.
he did for us was included us in additional things that they would give to other sponsors. Does that make sense? So he put an ad or a listing for us in their program.
But the earmarked, the money that we gave still went to the young artists. Okay, well, I don't know. I guess it's just whether or not we want to keep visual art and performing art separate. And I mean, as long as we keep that straight, I'm fine with the way it is, but it is a little bit confusing. What do you guys think? I'm fine. So performing art will include everything, performing art, and everything that includes youth in it, like TVCT, the MSO Awards, and youth art will be the Visual Art Awards programs. Is that the way everybody's understanding that?
That's the way it's written, but we could clarify. We could write Visual Art Award Program because if you know you're a third person from outside in the world and you're looking on OpenGov to see what the city's finances are, you might, if you see youth art, you might think, oh, the youth children's theater. Like I'm going to check there because that'd be youth art related. So I think if that line item is only going to be specific to the West Ada Student Art Show, that it should say West Ada Student Art Show or Student Art Awards framed or something that's more specific so that it isn't confusing. Or I'm not married to this, so we could just make it visual arts again, and it could be Inosh Point Gallery and youth art. I mean, it could be, instead of Inosh Point Gallery and youth art, it could be visual arts. Because then you have just performing art, visual art, concerts on Broadway, art development. It might be more clear, although it's less specific.
Madam Chair, I like the idea of
Yes.
tracking our programs. I mean, that's what we've committed to. Those are, we're trying to promote brand and let them be known, and for us to be able to look at that at a glance. If that's a simple fix to change youth art to say school district art show, I keep forgetting how you just worded it, but what you said, leaving the categories as they are, but just clarifying that particular one, that seems like a simple fix to me.
It does to me too, because we have, it makes it more consistent to the rest of the list too, because we have performing arts, but we also, because concerts on Broadway is kind of standalone, we have that pulled out. We have initial Point Gallery pulled out from public art. We have a traffic box art. So that, to clarify number 5 to be the specific program would make sense and be more consistent. Yeah, I think. Yes.
Madam
Jennifer.
Chair, I think that, do we have the ability to keep expanding this to add specific programs as we develop them? Hillary?
Yes. If you create a new program that hasn't already been coded for something, we can create a new project code for that. I don't want to be a nag to Sandra in finance and say, oh, I've got to recode a dozen things because now we're calling that something else. So
And we
if it's a
still
new
have
program, or if it's a new project, you could, like, say you did the video project. We could ask Sandra to create a video project code for us. That's really how it's supposed to be used, is as something comes up, ask for a project code, then it's assigned, and then you track from there.
So I think if it keeps expanding and to show each category, I think that this is a great model.
Okay. Thank you. With just and can you tell us how, like you said, like Gretchen said, how would number 5 then read? If we were specific, the Meridian Ada.
I was just saying school district art awards.
School District Art Awards? Does that?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, that.
Thank you, Hillary. Thank you. All right. So if there's no more discussions or questions on that, we would thank Hillary once more, and let's get those project codes going. And we have the admin report. Hillary.
Sorry, Initial Point Gallery report first.
Gallery report.
Do I have that on my?
6A.
I do not have that on my agenda. I have
6A
it.
under reports, Initial Point Gallery.
Who hosted?
Oh,
I missed it.
I've got a different, I confused. I need to put that over there. 6A, the Initial Point Gallery report.
Okay, so this month, Jessica Tukey has, her exhibit is up, and that opening is on next Tuesday. Hillary and I went through the list of applicants for the next showing of the gallery for 2019. There was a fair amount of applicants. Everybody has been contacted, the schedule has been made, and people have been contacted, and quite a few have responded. So now it's just shuffling. But Hillary and I talked about this, and to me it makes sense to extend this into 2020. So just because it's so many visual artists, schedule shows, but at least that far out. So if we do that, I think that's helpful, and we do have some interest in, for people to go out that far. Also trying to encourage more participation and more patrons coming to openings and seeing the gallery, and also to take some of the weight off of the artists as far as the amount of work that they have, as if we have multiple people in shows. There's certainly going to be times where there will be a solo show or a group show, and but those are both things I think that are good, and kind of to pair, if we can, emerging artists with established artists, and
I love that idea.
That helps with expense for the artists, and also it's a little easier for an emerging artist to.
Yeah,
it's
that gets some
easier,
visibility.
to be paired up with somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And we're looking at regional artists as well as local artists, but the goal is to try to always have a local artist, at least one local artist in the show at all times.
Okay.
So that we're not, going out to Oregon or Washington for shows exclusive to areas, to artists that are outside of the area.
And that's nice for our local artists too, because it gives them a little bit more reach as far as who comes to the gallery openings, and that's awesome.
Right. And then also to set up some shows that will be consistent year to year. For instance, the Ada County School, if we do a show for them, I think that's scheduled for May of next year. And if we can consistently do a show in May of every year, then there's some continuity with shows, and that has sometimes interest to the community.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we also talked about doing themed shows. So, for instance, we have. I saw some work of an artist that is a regional artist, and she's a cancer survivor, and so I thought that would be a great call, is to have a show of cancer survivors that are professional artists. So I'm asking committee or the commission members to, if you know of somebody that is a professional artist that has worked through surviving and treatment with and use their art as part of their recovery, I would like to have their names. I would like to be able to look at the work before we just contact randomly. But I think that could be a big call. And I think that could be a draw to a good outreach to community.
I do too. I think that's a wonderful idea. So everyone, I don't know anybody that I can think of right now, but I'll think about that and reach out to my friends that are artists to see who they know. And that's a wonderful idea. And I mean, we could outreach to the local hospitals. That's great.
Yeah, and you don't want you can get it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, you could be overwhelmed.
Yeah. So anyway, that's great. That's on the agenda.
Love it.
And then to encourage some of the art organizations to do shows, because they'll draw an organization will draw a lot of participation and patrons. Yeah. Because there's multiple artists. And then we also talked a little bit about the call to artists. Mm-hmm. However we've done it, anything seems that we don't get a big call. And so I says, why don't we just invite people? I mean, we have lists of artists, and why not just invite them and be done with it?
I agree. I think we've really done our due diligence on the annual call to artists. I think we put a lot of time and effort into it and we end up doing a lot of the work directly from the commission anyway, and I agree. We had 1 year, since I've been on the commission, we had 1 year where we had 29 applicants, and the rest of the years we have been looking to fill the gallery with different artists, especially the 3D. We've always had to search, and so is there anything that requires us to do, Emily, this might be a question for you, that requires us to do the annual call to artists?
Madam Chair, it's good policy just to make sure that everyone gets a shot. There's no legal requirement. Okay. It's a nice space, and it's a definite benefit to the artists for their work to be seen there. It's not a store. It's not a typical gallery. It's really for the benefit of the people of Meridian and City Hall visitors, but there is an attendant benefit to showing there. So the call to artists was initially, I think, because there have been years where there are way more applicants than months in the year. Where that's not the case, it's a little less pressing to do that. So it's somewhat a supply and demand issue and somewhat a fairness issue. But legally, it's not required.
Okay.
I would think that a soft call, like on the website and social media, to respond by a certain date if people are interested. But as far as spending time and money to go through a professional organization of doing a formal call, I don't think it was worth the money spent this year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think a happy compromise would be to have something like pinned to the top of our Facebook page or a link on our website that says, are you interested in showing an Initial Point gallery? If so, here's the application. And the application isn't necessarily year specific, so we could just add on there a date of when they applied, and then somehow some type of criteria or something that says when we could get back to them so that they know that it's not just floating out there forever. But yeah, we could do something that's open for, a quarter, and then you could use that to help fill next year or any gaps.
I think that sounds like a great mid-range, because the money that was spent, we could, and that way we're still getting it out there. We also can think of it as it might drive a little more traffic to our Meridian website after a while too, because people will be going to our website to find the information and get a little more visibility there. That doesn't hurt. And we've also changed, since it's proved to be such an advantage to have more than one artist in the gallery for all the reasons that you mentioned, we just need more, not less. So I think that's a great idea. Do we need to make that an action agenda to change that? Can we put that on the agenda to change that process? We'll still put we won't spend the money for the call to artists like we've been doing, but we will make it publicly visible on the website to make sure that people know. Well, how do we need to?
I could put something on the next agenda because it's not listed here as an action item. But knowing that that's your interest, I'll just have that on the next agenda, and you guys can kind of slightly rehash this and then make a motion for that. The other thing to consider then too would be possibly removing the application fee, since we would be inviting so many artists. It seems, my initial thought was, it seems weird to charge someone else to apply if we're inviting so many other people. So just something else to consider, maybe in the December meeting.
Okay. All right.
And then we've combined the December and January show into one, which we did, I think, did we do that this past year?
Yeah, we did that this last year.
Yeah.
Just because it's winter time and slow months and.
Yeah. Makes sense. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Anything further on that? If not, we would move on to the admin report. Now we are there.
We're there. I stopped making, this is my first time trying this, I stopped making an attachment and just included it all in this item sheet. So if you guys don't like this, just let me know. Yeah, you guys putting together your committee meetings is super helpful. I really appreciate that. I'm going to try to list all the upcoming committee meetings on my admin report every time. If you ever notice something wrong, please tell me. But this is partially for you guys and then partially also for the public, so your committee meetings are noticed somewhere else other than just on our boards, the week before the meeting or 2 days before the meeting. Concerts on Broadway, myself and Colin from the Parks Department had to postpone our meeting with a Live After Fives coordinator, but we do intend to talk to them to get insight on the weekly offerings, like Parks is considering. If anyone hadn't heard that conversation before, Parks has been talking about hosting a smaller scale, not an event like Concerts on Broadway, but a smaller scale weekly reoccurring concert series, more akin to Live After Five. So we've just been working through how to distinguish those two different events, what input from the Arts Commission that the Parks Department might need, and that kind of stuff. So we'll get some more insight from, I'm blanking on her name, Carly, maybe, from A Live After Five. Finish Point Gallery, I just included the basics there. The exhibit that's going to be December, January has technically 5 local artists in it. Joyce Green's going to be in half, Lisa Bauer will be in a quarter, Nadine Krantz will be in a quarter, and then Flynn Day Pottery, which is 2 people, will have the 3D cases in the middle. So that should be a really good and fun show. And I added some little quick personal notes. I am out of the office next week for a conference, but I'll be checking email. So if you guys have something that comes up, email me rather than call me. And the Public Art Committee does take place next week, and I'll call one of you guys or I'll arrange to call one of you guys to be a part of that conversation or help however I can. Your end of year report is coming due. It's due around the 1st of January. So I'll work on drafting that up. I usually draft something and then share it with you guys and then get your input and go from there. If you have something that you specifically want to include in that annual report that I haven't included in the past, I usually look at the last year's and then I kind of just take our template and add whatever we did from this year. But if you can think of something in particular that you really want to highlight, or if there's like a testimonial, like a quote from someone for the chalk art competition or something like that that you'd like to include, just shoot it my way and I'll get it included in that first draft. And then also, I hope these admin reports are helpful to you. I know sometimes I just say, you have the admin report, but I want to walk through them when I can. If you want more details, just let me know. I could include more if you need more.
I think this is really helpful. I always think it's helpful just because then it helps me remember what you said about each item if I have the item on the agenda, but I think that's enough detail for me. Do you?
Great, Hillary, you're the best.
Yes, yes. Good. Okay, so could you go back to that admin report for a minute?
Yes, I was just pulling up the other.
Yeah, there we go.
The other expense one also.
Okay.
So I actually included your guys' fiscal year, end of fiscal year report instead of your current report because you have spent $0 so far, which is to be expected at this time of year. So this is where your FY18 ended. And I'll show you those expenses. I'm sorry, I forgot to highlight them. Map boards for the gallery. I forgot to mention when Bonnie referenced the West Ada Student Art Show, we purchased those map boards and those frames with the intention of using that for student art in the future. This still gives us the capability of having other student art groups or student artists in the gallery, but as long as this partnership with West Ada School District works well, having their framed art show exhibited here would be a nice reoccurring show. So that was the map boards. Additional hooks for hanging things in the gallery. As we've been inviting more artists, some of their art is smaller. So we have been double hanging a lot more often. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough hooks to accommodate all of the art artists are bringing in. These Facebook ads were from Meridian Art Week. Now pack expenses are up through all of this. And then the radio ad for Art Week has come through. And traffic blockers art installations. Wow. Yeah, I'm going into October. Sorry. You guys have seen some of these before. Not too much has been new. I'll go back to your summary page. You ended up with almost $3,000 still in your budget for your general budget. And your MAPS funds that could roll over was 15.
So both of those, the general and the maps, can roll over?
No, only the MAPS can roll over.
Only the maps can roll over. The general. Okay. Right.
You lost $3,000.
Oh, I need to spend more money.
I did not overspend. So.
No, that's good. That's good. Coming in under budget is always good. Good, thank you. And did everybody hear that if, for the, because this will be part of our year end, but also anything that you want to share to have her include in, anecdotes or reviews or things that are good experiences that you've had, things the public has said, or the review. It's always nice to kind of, for her to have a few of those things as well as the numbers, just so that we can show that the community is enjoying the events. So if anything occurs to you, get it to her. And what's your time frame on that again? When are you needing those by?
If you could get me that type of information by our next meeting, I can always include it if it's not included in the first draft. So,
okay,
for the next meeting, let's say that.
Great, thank you, Hillary. All right, so that is an action item. Are there any questions for Hillary? Discussion? Anything more that you wanted to add? If not, we would consider a motion on the approval of monthly expenses.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the monthly expenses.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And now our next meeting, can I just take a quick, what's the date on the next meeting? Because it is December. Can we take a quick quorum count? Just
December 13th.
13th. Is anybody, do we Yeah, because I know December's hard. Okay, so we won't consider moving it. Hopefully we'll have a quorum. And yes, so adjournment. Motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That was kind of a long meeting for your first